Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here with us at our Bible study podcast. Um, I am Ricky Mosel, and this is Jerry Garner, and we're the teaching pastors of Destination Church. And we are here today going to start a new study on our core values. And today we're going to focus on the first of our five core values at our church, and they're based on the five biblical purposes that we find in Matthew 28 in the Great Commission and in Matthew 21 and 22 in the Great Commandment, that every church exists for and every Christian exists for. And so the reason we wanted to talk about these is we're going to be doing an upcoming series called Pursue, where we're talking about what it means to pursue a life of Christ as a disciple of His. And it's a teaching on our core values in July. And we believe that if you live out our five core values, if you put effort every single day consistently into living out our five core values, because they're based on the biblical purposes, your spiritual health, you will be spiritually healthy and you will grow. And so we believe that that is how you pursue becoming a disciple of Christ. And so we're going to focus on one of the five today, and as we move through the Bible study, we'll spend a couple of weeks on each one, and then throughout the rest of the month of June, and then in July, we'll visit all five of them. And Jerry, do you remember what the five core values are?
Always, man.
Yeah. So what are they, man?
Well, you got Jesus matters, peoples matter, relationship matters, giving matters.
Growing matters.
Growing matters.
Growing matters. Right.
It's always
and
growing.
so we believe that growing people change. We believe that the way you show people that they matter is by serving them and ministering to them. We believe that giving matters because it changes the condition of your heart from being greedy or selfish to being grateful and generous. We believe that Jesus matters because that's the most important one. That's what it's all about. Everything is about Him. And then we also believe that relationships matter because you can't do life alone. And so today we're going to focus on that one, relationships matter, and we're going to begin a discussion on that. So Jerry, you want to go ahead and take over and begin to share with us today?
Yeah. We've got a few things. Like I said, this will probably take more than a single one. I guess the next one's going to be growing matter, since I forgot that one. So we're going to start in Isaiah 7:14. It says, "Therefore the Lord Himself will give you a sign. Behold, a virgin will be with child and bear a son, and she will call his name Emmanuel." I think we're going to break it down into the five different things, but there are, 5 points that you can take out of relationships matters. Like, one, life with God is both a relationship and a religion. It's a religion is a belief in a God or a God's a system of faith or worship. Relationships is the way two or more things are connected and work together in harmony. You can clearly have relationships without a religion. Throughout the world, we see this, people connecting with each other, not even a single thought of God, or if you're religious at all. And yet, you can also have a religion without relationship. Many people put their faith in a variety of truths and of one kind or another instead of one-on-one interactions. They're more, experience-based faith, you could say, is one of those. These people often enjoy debating about facts and want to dig into other people's beliefs more than understanding and seeing that both.
And I love the way that you put this, that life with God is about both a relationship and a religion.
Mm-hmm.
One of the sayings that we have around our church all the time is that Jesus is not an either or God. He is a both and God. And,
absolutely.
This speaks volumes to that right there, because so many people do try to compare a relationship and religion with the two. It's like, we're not about a religion, we're about a relationship. What I'm saying? And so here what you're saying is that some people try to do one and some people try to do the other, but really it's actually both.
It should be both.
Right.
We're going to go through some stuff today. But when you really think about it, a religion and a relationship is bound together. If you accept God through Christ Jesus, not because you choose to have a relationship with God, but God goes out of His way and has throughout the entire Word to have a relationship with us. God actually, it's funny, we're going to be doing the Pursue series, but God has, come to us, pursued us since the very beginning of time and the foundation of earth. If you look at Adam and Eve, they recognized God's voice and knew the sound of Him walking through the garden. If proof is Genesis 3:8 through 10. They heard a sound of the Lord God walking in the garden on a cool of the day, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees in the garden. Then the Lord God called to the man and said, "Where are you?" He said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself." So I think we hear that sometimes and you don't realize that means he had an intimate relationship with God. He was used to hearing him walk through the garden. He understood what it meant when his presence was in the garden.
Right.
So yeah, he had that relationship, almost like a father type relationship here.
Right. Right.
And then, we go into Moses here. God spoke to Moses face to face as someone would speak to their friends. In Exodus 33:11, it says, "The Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, just as a man speaks to his friend." I mean, it's throughout here over and over and over. And, as we always bring up here for some reason, Jacob, when Jacob wrestled God. He wrestled him for his blessing in Genesis 33:22 through 32. If you want to get a read, it's a pretty good read. He went in there, a man shows up, wrestles him. They wrestle all the way through the night. Jacob's like, "No, give me the blessing." And he's like, "What is your name?" It's Jacob. Well, it's now Israel. But as our guy a couple weeks ago pointed out, he touched him in the hip and basically made him walk with a limp the rest of his life. So, I mean, the idea that God came down, took the form of a man, and wrestled someone throughout the entirety of the night. I would like to know, as a wrestler, if it was folk style, freestyle, or Greco. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go Greco since that's the oldest form. But
So why do you think God? Obviously, God didn't have to wrestle him,
No.
right? Like he said, he blessed him because you wrestled with the Lord and prevailed. But we know that he only prevailed because God led him.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So why do you think that is? Why did he make him wrestle for it and then let him prevail?
Well, for me, I mean, sometimes I think you got to know what are you willing to do? I think that's something that people have to really understand. What are you willing to do to get your blessing? I think a lot of people think that I can sit at home and pray and a blessing's going to come to me. Well, here's Jacob went and wrestled God in the form of man and wrestled him all night. I mean, most people I know, today can't even put more than 15 to 20 minutes of focus into anything.
Yeah.
Let alone put a whole day into it.
Yeah.
Same thing like I brought up in the sermon on Sunday. Look at Joshua, served under Moses, ends up picking up a sword, leads people to battle over and over and over. I mean, he's an old man before they make it to the promised land.
Right. Right.
I mean, this guy put in, how long? 40, 50,
Yeah.
60 years
Yep.
to be able to get there.
But because he knew God, he knew that was his role. He wasn't trying to figure out where his life was going to go or what he was going to be or accomplish later on. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. You need an internal drive to push you to become more
Yeah, absolutely.
than you are. But he also knew that this was the role that God planned for his life, and so he's willing to commit
Yep.
the entirety of his life to fulfilling what God wanted and pleasing him, which showed his obedience, which in turn shows how much he genuinely loved God. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, you can even go to the part where, like Paul, Paul had a genuine relationship with Christ. I mean,
Right.
that's only he could understand what happened there.
Right.
And Paul spent the rest of his life pursuing what his, God's will was
Right.
because that relationship was made. So I think a lot of times we look at it and go, oh, well, here's something that, I laugh every time I hear somebody say it. It's that Jesus or God's a gentleman and they won't force themselves to do it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, but God's going to do whatever he wants to do anyway.
Right.
And whether you want to be part of it or not might be up to you,
Totally.
but it's going to happen. So is God a gentleman? Yeah. I mean, I can't think of anything crazy going on, but at the same time though, if he wants you to do it, you're going to kind of do it anyway.
Yeah, but isn't it like me holding a gun to your head and going, hey, take this $5 million. You won the lottery. I don't care what you say. You're going to take it. If you want to bury it, if you want to put it in a safe somewhere, if you want to give it away, that's fine. But you're going to take this $5 million. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like he's forcing you to do something that's wrong for you. So
Yeah, exactly.
anything he has planned for you is right. And that's what I don't get. People, it's like, why is God going to impede his will on? Well, his will's not like your will.
Yeah, exactly.
His will for you is right. It is what's best for you, whether you wish to acknowledge it or not. And that's what a relationship with him breeds. I think that's why Joshua and Moses, that's why they could commune with him face to face, because they trusted that whatever his will was, no matter whether they understood it or not, they knew that it was the right thing for him, for them. You know what I mean?
Well, and then also too, like when you look at a lot of the stuff, especially in the Old Testament, like with Joshua, Moses, any of them, you really have to not look at things like that through the lens of today either.
Right, of course.
So I think that's one of the big things. Like I think it's going to end up being an issue for the Bible in general in the next upcoming years. Is that now everybody looks through the lenses of 2020, and they want to look through back into time and think that everything should line up with how it was here. I mean, if you look at a lot of things they did in the Old Testament under today's modern times, you would look at it and go, oh, that's kind of wicked, little off-putting. But
Right.
you'd also understand that's nature. That was how nature is. Like we were just he doesn't like I was on LinkedIn just a minute ago, and there somebody posted something about a leopard's got a hyena. A small baby deer trying to get up in the thing, and hyenas reach up and grab its leg. And they were talking about don't ever give up, right? And then, of course, everybody's looking at this hyena ripping this deer's leg off and a leopard trying to hold on to it. Well, needless to say, a big old, hyena, as strong as a leopard is, it can't support the weight of an antelope. There it is, not a deer, antelope. An antelope and a hyena, so it ends up letting go. And people on there like, I can't believe, we need to show compassion to the dead animal. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're trying to put human emotion and our morality onto animals. You can't do that. And then, one guy put on there, these hyenas were trying to rescue that. And I simply responded with, no, buddy, they ate that. They ate that antelope.
Exactly.
So I think a lot of times we make things more complicated because we want to look at things through the lens of today, or we want to look at nature as something as we can control. And we don't realize that, buddy, when you get outside of civility and you get out into the world, man, I mean, your morality can be destroyed pretty quickly because survival comes into play
Right.
at some point. So
But isn't it a form of pride or self-thinking or arrogance, I guess I would say? Aren't you like thinking too much of yourself if you believe that animals feel like you do and think like you do, like have compassion towards other animals?
I mean, absolutely, man.
Isn't that kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like
You ask me, you say something to me and I can blame the human, I'm always going to blame the human. The leopard and the hyena looked at that antelope as food.
Yeah.
It didn't look at this poor innocent little deer. It looked at, oh, that's something I can get to relatively easy.
Right.
I don't know. I always look at those things differently. I know some people are like, I can't believe. I'm like, dude, that's food. I promise you, man, if the supply chain ended and you couldn't go to your grocery store and get your vegetables and stuff, I promise you those cute little deers and even dogs start looking edible after a minute.
Yeah,
So
and also in reverse too, if you got stuck in your home and died and your dog was with you and it was starving, he'd start eating on you.
yeah, and for you guys who have cats, it happens 3 times faster with the cats will eat you. So
I mean, and it's nothing against dogs or cats. That's just that's how they are. You know what I'm saying?
gotta
They're
eat.
not humans.
yeah, they don't have opposable thumbs.
Yeah,
They
they're
can't
not
open
sitting
up
there
the
thinking,
can.
"Oh, that's my master. I can't eat that." No, they're like, "I'm hungry."
Yeah, they probably will for a little bit, but that cat's gonna eat you almost
Yeah.
immediately.
I mean, if they'll eat garbage out of the garbage can.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, sidetracked on that. So I think one of the most powerful prophecies about Jesus is identifying himself as Emmanuel, which God is with us. I think, God promised this is in the Old Testament, just as promised the Son of Man, Jesus came and seek to save the lost. If you're curious, that's Luke 19:10. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save which has been lost. And Jesus and his apostles, Jesus chose his apostles. I think that's something we kind of glance over a lot of times too, that Jesus actually went to the apostles and said, hey, you're coming with me, basically. It's not like they saw Jesus and was like, I want to follow that guy.
Right.
So Jesus had a particular person he was looking for. And in John 15:16 actually says that you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you would go and bear fruit and your fruit would remain. So whatever you ask of my Father in my name, he will give you, right? So Jesus selects us. So God chose us. God chooses you.
Right.
Now, I know a lot of people don't like to hear that because you get into the elect and everything else, and then you got the Calvinists come out,
Right.
then the anti-Calvinists come out. And once
Which where
again,
we stand is what we talked about earlier.
Yep.
We
It's a
believe
both.
it's not either or. It is
Yep.
both and. We believe that in our world, in the realm of time, in this finite existence that we're in right now, that we do have free will in our minds, but God exists outside of time, and so He already knows all of the choices that you're going to make. So therefore, He predestined us,
Yeah.
despite what our choices were.
yeah, exactly. I
You
mean, as we've said before on here, I think a lot of times people, you got to realize that, God picked David knowing what David would do,
Right.
but he still knew what David would ultimately end up doing.
Totally.
So I think a lot of times I'm not really I'm one of the guys. I would lean more towards a Calvinist point of view of election than I would saying that there is no election. Me personally,
Right.
Because I just find
Because you have an understanding
Yeah.
that no matter what you if you believe you're making the choice or not, you also know that you don't understand that it doesn't affect God's ultimate.
Oh,
plan.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the more I get, the more you talk to people who have lived these crazy lives, and out of nowhere they have this thing that happens, and now they're just sold out to Jesus. It's very hard to look at them and go, that was chance.
Right.
I think, Sam, well, you Sam.
Yeah.
Look at the stuff Sam did in his lifetime. There ain't no reason that guy should be alive.
Right. I know.
Let alone, being this close to becoming a pastor
Mm-hmm.
and preaching and stuff. I mean, you can't tell me that wasn't ordained for him
course.
ahead of time.
Yeah.
So
Paul.
yeah, Paul.
Paul's the same way. You know what I'm saying? He's like the last guy in the Bible at the time. Saul that you think would become a Christian, but he ends up becoming one of the most sold out, devoted, zealous Christians.
Yeah. Now this
Christ.
might be a strong stance, but I'm going to stand behind it. That would almost been like Adolf Hitler, out of nowhere, just saying, the Jews really aren't that bad.
Jews
Let's
bad.
let them out of
Let's
the
fight
thing.
For the Jews,
yeah,
right? Give your
yeah.
life to fighting for them.
People think I'm crazy, but if you look how the Pharisees viewed Christ, it's not that far of a stretch to put the two together.
Right.
So
Right.
And
by no means are we comparing Paul to Adolf Hitler or nothing like that. Don't misconstrue it. But it is a great analogy. Yes, it is.
I'm
That is
talking
exactly
about how he would have been viewed in the
right.
community.
He would have been viewed by Christians in those days the same as Jews would have viewed Adolf Hitler.
Because
right.
I mean that's the similar. Like you literally have stoned Stephen. You've been hunting Christians down and killing them.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably the best at doing it, and then out of nowhere you're just like, "Hey, I'm going to be on your team now."
Yeah, I'm on your team. Yeah, this is a trick.
Yeah.
And that's what they thought. They thought he was tricking.
Yeah, no hard feelings, buddy.
Deceit.
Yeah, my bad. But the point that the only way that could happen is he had a relationship with
Right,
Christ.
exactly.
So once he had the relationship, he changed his sides. 2/3 of our Bible gets written, New Testament anyway. And I think one of the clearest cases of somebody truly being sold out and living their life
Total
for Christ
turnaround,
afterward.
basically,
Yeah, absolutely.
In our eyes, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And
Well-
I think too, it points to the fact that a relationship with Christ, once you start genuinely pursuing Him in a real way, like the Bible teaches us to get to know Him, I think Paul's relationship with Christ is a perfect example of the fact that relationships that we have with other people are not the same as a relationship you have with Jesus.
Oh no, not
A
at all.
relationship with Jesus is unique. It's on a different level because of who He is, not because of who we are.
Well, and it even ties into the secret life principle that we're doing right now too. Is the fact that no one could know your relationship you have
Right.
with Christ. Really, I mean,
Right.
in all honesty, no one really knows. And I always go back to that. Oh, once again, man, social media. So I just made me think about it, and I was reading it. Me and Pat, I think it was Tuesday. Somebody on social media put on there that she pulled up to a drive-through and the person's mask broke and they were about to send her home, and she was complaining how she didn't have money and was crying. And the lady's like, and I got out of my car and went and took the mask out of my trunk and I handed it through the window to him. And then she's like, and I left there with a free Frosty and feeling really good about myself. And I'm like, I was in the process of typing, Jesus said, let your deeds be in secret. And I stopped because I knew, well, two things. One, I try not to type whenever I'm actually like in the process of like understanding what somebody's saying, because
Right.
my mouth will, as what SAR's afraid, my mouth will get me in trouble. But at the second time, I'm like, they probably won't even understand the reference. So, I'm really just I'm gonna be that guy
Yeah.
outside of the WWE thing with a megaphone screaming at people for going to watch wrestling.
Yep,
You know?
yep.
So I stopped.
You're going to be the holy roller hater.
So I stopped. But it made me think about there's a lot of great deeds that people will do in their lifetime you'll never know about because guess what? They don't go and say, hey, I need a pat on my back for it, or hey, give me virtue points for this good deed that I did that really meant nothing in the long run of anything. But hey, give me a pat on the back. There's a lot of people that do good things every day just because it's the right thing to do, and they'll never say anything about it.
Right.
And I think to me, those are more impactful relationships. You know, I was just talking about David on Sunday. David had killed a lion and a bear, never told anyone.
Right.
I mean,
Didn't gloat, didn't let anybody know.
yeah, no one knew. It's a
Right.
secret.
Yep.
You know, until you go to his tent and you see the lion rug and the bear rug. You know, I mean, you'd never know.
But when he revealed it was because he was trying to plead his case to go defend God's honor,
Yeah.
not because he was trying to talk
Yeah.
of himself, you know.
Yeah,
To Saul.
Hey, let me pitch this idea to you that I'm this 12-year-old boy.
Yep.
I'm going to go fight this 9-foot giant. I have killed a lion and a bear.
Rip their mouths apart. So
Yeah.
take that in consideration before you turn me down.
Yeah. I mean, then you tell me that's not a relationship he had
Yep.
with God
Yep.
I mean, I'd probably ask you what you were reading because to me that's bravery on a whole different level of
Right,
bravery, you know.
Well,
and-
and God, so much so that God made sure to point out in the Word, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that he was a man that was after God's own heart. You know what I'm saying? He wanted people to know that was what made David's relationship with him as strong as it was, is because his faith, you know, led him to chase after what God wanted, not what he wanted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's one of the big ones. But you can read all the way through the Old Testament. The God was always after the Israelites. They were always after the Hebrews. They went after them, said, "You're my chosen people." You know, God was a faithful God. He is a God, and the Israelites never really do a good job holding up their end.
Yep.
But it didn't deter God from chasing after them and
Right.
saying, "Hey, you're still my chosen people." And not because you're anything, you know, uniquely special about you. It's just that I've taken a shine to you. Like,
Yep.
I like you. And I think a lot of people read that and then go, well, what makes them so special? Well, it could have been you. It just
Yep.
happened that they got selected.
And you wouldn't complained if it was you.
Yeah. And, you know, and if you look at the hardships they endured, I don't know how many people would have said, hey, bring
Yeah,
that on.
Exactly.
So,
But I love how you said in the beginning too that we're talking about pursuing a relationship with Christ and becoming his disciple. I love how you said that God chose to pursue us first, like you're talking about here. And that's all he's ever done since the beginning. Since he created us, we would do things time and time again to break the pursuit, and he would relentlessly continue to pursue after us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like giving him every reason that you can to stop chasing after us, but because of his faithfulness, there's nothing that you can do to make him stop, you know. And so he's not asking you to do anything with him that he hasn't already chose to do for you, you know?
well, and, you know, that goes to a couple different things, too. So, like, you know, I think a lot of times when people say that, you know, he forsake the Jews and went to the Gentiles, okay, there's truth to that. But in the same breath, he also said I was going to return to them.
Yep.
And I think, you know, people look at it because I get people at work or people I know that will go, well, I don't know why we're always over there fighting for Israel anyway. And I'm like, well, I know this is hard for you guys to believe. We were founded on Christian beliefs.
Yep.
So if we've read the Bible like most of our founding fathers had, now granted, a lot of them didn't get a choice to read it. It was
Right.
read to them,
Right.
but they had this built in the idea that most of the people who have been elected to president have all been, and Trump might be the least religious president I know. And even he kind of holds up, but I mean, most of them have been pretty devout. Like you look at old George W. I mean, that guy thought God literally selected him to be president.
Right.
So the idea that we would just not go and defend them would go against everything that we read in our Bible.
course, right.
And do I agree with going over there and being their bodyguard all the time? Probably not. But I also understand why we do it. So it's one of those things I won't even argue with you about
Right.
because I just go, that's never going to change.
Right.
Sorry. I mean, it's just not. Like if China invaded Israel tomorrow, we would be there fighting. It's just
Exactly.
wouldn't even think twice about
Right.
it.
And the thing about it too, though, is when God chose them to be His people, He said that He did it to show His glory to the world,
Yes.
to show how He wanted to cultivate a relationship with everyone, and so He always intended to bring the good news to the Gentiles. And it was through the plan that He had. It wasn't some other route. He didn't detour off of something because the Israelites failed on their end of the bargain. He always made sure that the plan He chose was implemented regardless of what they did. And I think that's what people don't realize a lot of times. We give ourselves too much credit when we think what we do or don't do affects what God's doing.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing too. So one, the Israelites weren't the largest group of people.
No.
They definitely weren't the most advanced group.
No.
Clearly, they weren't the smartest group at the time because
They reproduce like rabbits. but
if
other
I've
than
got
that-
God like leading me through the desert, I'm going to listen to whatever the man says. You know, I mean, I'm not going to get somewhere and start building stuff.
Yeah, man.
You know.
A pillar of smoke and a ball of fire at night.
Yeah, I mean,
24/7,
I'm following you.
I'm following that. You know
I'm
what
not.
saying?
I'm not questioning you. I'll be the Joshua of the group. But that's the thing. But I don't even know if that's really something that people get. But at the same time, though, since Israel, look at what that country's been through. Like the people, not so much the country.
Yeah.
The people of Israel, what they've been through in their lifetime. I mean, how many times they've been conquered? How many
Right.
times have they been enslaved? They're in the middle of an area that everyone in the area wants them dead.
Blown up and destroyed off the face of the
Yeah,
earth.
I mean, you look at like a lot of the stuff. Like I used to watch Ben Shapiro significantly more than I do today, and that was kind of his whole thing. Was like, this is an entire country that if they had nukes, they would wipe this country off the face of the earth. They wouldn't even think about it. And there's a lot of truth to that, but God has gotten them through so much.
Right.
I still don't think you would be able to I don't think they would go away. I don't. I
But
don't think it
that's
would
what
ever
I'm
happen.
saying, though. I think that's the plan. That was the purpose. The purpose was to show everyone else how committed and devoted you have to be to a relationship with God for it to work, for the change that needs to take place within you to happen. It uncovers the true identity and repercussions of what sin really does to us on a deeper emotional level, spiritual level, mental level. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And they're some of the feistiest people in the world, man.
Yeah.
I have three Jewish friends, man, that I think the world of, and at first they thought I was making fun of them because they're so argumentative, So, I think they thought that I was like always trying to rile them up, which I was. But I truly love the fact that when they believe something, you are not swaying that at all.
Right.
So I'm like, that's some of the stuff that I enjoy. But anyway, back to our thing here. So I think God's relationship with people is central. It's central to the purpose of creation. It's the relationship between God and His people are bound to His love. God's pursued a relationship with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He initiated relationships in the Old Testament with Moses, Joshua, Samuel, David. And then here's another one people forget. Literally all followers in the Scriptures all had a relationship with Christ. So, I mean, he chased after, and Jesus chased after the disciples. He, developed the disciples, made the disciples more than they would have ever probably been on their own. And he does the same with us. I mean, in all honesty, you can't say that if you're a Christ believer, I mean, it's hard to believe that you can't believe Jesus is trying to have that relationship with you and wants to have more relationship than you're probably willing to have.
Right.
So I think that's one of the big takeaways for that. As far as God, I think our relationship, it's a religion, of course. We have a deity. And at the same time, it's a relationship. It's a literal relationship. He's going to give, as much love and more than you could ever understand. And he doesn't ask for a whole lot back. I can't think of a better relationship that you can ask for.
Right. And it makes sense because if you don't have the religion aspect and the relationship aspect, then you may know Him as your God, but you don't know Him as your friend.
Yeah.
Or you don't know Him as your father or your family, or Jesus as your brother or sister, and you're a brother or sister to Him.
Well, I mean,
in
yeah, you
Christ.
can even look in like Norse mythology. It's one of the crazy things that Odin was actually more powerful than Thor, and I'm not talking about Marvel, but like the actual thing. But people took to Thor. Thor was more of for the people. He was
Right.
the champion of the people.
Right.
They wore. You don't see a lot of people ripping out their right eye or left eye to be like Thor. I mean, to be like Odin. But man, they'll slap a hammer around their neck in a heartbeat and get ready to go. I think that you have gods that are, or whatever. Not, I'm just throwing this out, but you could have a god and not have an actual relationship with the person,
Right.
and honor them. Think of like a Zeus or something like that, which is one of the reasons why, as much as everybody hates it or doesn't like when, everybody talks about it. But if you look at like the Hinduism, I mean, they truly believe they have a relationship with Krishna and Shiva and all these people. Like, I mean, it's not the idea that it's something separate.
Right.
It wouldn't even cross their mind. But then you get to us in the West, and we're trying to separate, a relationship and a religion instead of just saying, no, man, they're the same
Yeah.
thing. You can't have one without the other.
Right. And you got people on both ends. You got some people that are like, no, he's a god, quit trying to make him your friend. And then you got other people that just want him to be your friend, but don't care nothing about worshiping him as your deity, you know what I'm saying, as
Yeah.
your God. And I love how you said that for God, relationship with people is central to his purpose for creation.
Yeah.
That,
Like, why else would he created us?
right, exactly. Yeah.
Like, what are we, Sim City? And he was just like, let me see what I can do.
Right,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
It doesn't even make sense. And even if you do the Sim City thing, I know a lot of people that were really big into those games back in the day. They actually started thinking that was their world. Like they really cared about what was going on.
Right.
They forgot they were just little digital, pixels on the screen, So, yeah, I just don't see any reason for us to not be in a relationship. I don't think God would have done all this for us to just kind of aimlessly wander around.
So then, if he created us to be in a relationship with him, why did he create every other creature?
I mean, it's all relationship with the world, man. You can't, there's
for
no,
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
there is no, I know people don't want to see lions,
Yeah.
but I kind of like lions.
Yeah.
I don't want to be eaten.
Right.
I like things in nature. I love, like, when people that, well, you probably know this. I get along significantly better outdoors than I do talking to people. Like,
Right,
that's
right.
just not one of my overly strong points. I think I've gotten significantly better over the years, but I literally could have zero contact with the average person and I'd be okay. And we actually got a point that we're going to get to that in here too, why I believe that changes sometimes. But yeah, no, I think that everything is balanced. Everything in the world should be balanced. You can't, as we've said before, you can't have evil not to have good. Like, you can't have one without the other one. You would have no idea what good is if you didn't have something to compare it to.
Right.
So when
I
people
agree.
say, well, how could you worship God when, not have a relationship? Because that way, when you do have a relationship with him, guess what? You'll know the difference.
Right. Exactly.
You'll be able to tell the difference of what your life was before and then what it is now.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because it all comes full circle back to the beginning. If Eve already knew what she was going to discover when she ate the fruit from the knowledge of good and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, she wouldn't have ate it. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, once she realized what she had done, you know what I'm saying? That was the whole point, though. She didn't do it because she already knew. She did it because she wanted her way over God's way, instead of trusting him with something she didn't know, you know
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
I mean? And now that we have the knowledge, we'd do anything we could to give it back. But we can't. Only Jesus can bring us back into right relationship, with him.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, and there's some other stuff too. Like, I've actually watched some of these protests where some of these Christians have went out on the street and talked to the protesters, and and they're talking about Jesus, and the protesters are vehemently against the idea of you bringing Jesus into anything. But seeing some of these women stand up, and they've all been women for some reason. I guess not a lot of men going out there with their shields anymore. But they've all been women, and to see the conviction that they have in their faith, like, those people have a relationship.
Yep.
There's no questioning to it. And the people who spit on them and yell at them and argue and throw stuff,
Yeah.
I'm going to assume they don't.
Right.
I might be wrong, but I'm going to make that assumption on this and say
But
they
and
don't.
making an impact too. There are some, that they are, getting through to, and genuinely having conversions and leading people to Christ, and you know what I'm saying. So if it's get spit on by 20, so one comes to know the Lord, Do you know what I'm saying? And you're right. It is. It when you see their conviction, you know that that is because they have a right relationship with Jesus.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, point two, starting into that is let your relationship reflect the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. In John 14, starting at verse 18, I will not leave you as orphans, I will come to you. After a little while, the world will no longer see me, but you will see me, because I live and you live also. In that day, you will know that I am my Father, and you in me, and I in you. He has my commandments, keeps them, and one who loves me, and the who loves me will be loved by the Father, and I will love him and disclose myself to him. Judas, not that Judas, said to him, Lord, what then happened that you are going to disclose yourself to us and not to the world? Jesus answered and said, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and the Father will love him. We will come and to make an our abode in him. He does not love me, does not keep my word, and the words which you hear is not mine, but of the Father who sent me. These things I have spoken to you, while adding to you, but the Helper, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father I will send in my name, will teach you all things and bring to you remembrance that all that I've said to you. Right? So right there, passage, Jesus says, if you honor my commandments, you're living in the Word, you have the Father, and I will send the Spirit to you. So right away, we're seeing all three parts of the Trinity in one passage, where he's talking about we're going to reflect onto you. So I think a lot of times I put in this thing was often you reflect on relationships that shaped you. Sometimes past relationships get reflected in your present life intentionally. Perhaps you loved your grandparents or your dad or somebody for their warm love, their spirit, their fightfulness or fighting in them, generosity, and you seek to be like them in that way. And yet other times, old relationships' influence seem to come out of nowhere. You were shocked the first times that you heard the words, and if you're a parent, you know where I'm going. Because I said so came out of your mouth, and you sounded just like your parents. I think a lot of times that we neglect a lot of this. Like I think you have relationships that have shaped you and who you are, whether you want to admit it or you even realize it. You have been shaped
Right.
by them. There's things that my dad did that I literally catch myself doing, and you're just like, wow. I can't believe I'm doing that. But there's things also too, like to his point, like if you had a very strong parent or somebody in your life, why wouldn't you try to model yourself after them to grow and be better?
Of course.
Throughout the entirety of the scripture, you see the Father, the Son, and the Spirit working together to reveal God's will for us and bring us to salvation. At the very beginning of the Bible, in Genesis 1, 1, 2, 3, in the beginning, the God created the heaven and the earth. The earth was formless and void. The darkness was over the surface of the deep. The Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the water. And then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And we would find out later on in John is Jesus was the Word that became flesh. Mm-hmm. So right here in Genesis 1, 2, 3, we have all three aspects of the Trinity working together to not only create this world, but to go ahead and be laying down the foundation of everyone's life. I think that's something that people tend to forget. That like, oh well, God created it. Okay, well then you have the ancient aliens, people who take this completely out of context. In Genesis 1 verse 26, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. So immediately people go, oh, there it is, they're aliens. It was aliens that did it. Well, by saying that, you're neglecting the Trinity. There's three of them. Also, it's our. Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky and over the cattle and all of the earth, and create and every creeping thing that creeps on earth. God created man in his own image, and the image of God is created in him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and everything that moves on earth. Right there, Trinity, all three parts said, let's make you in our image. We're giving you dominion over the world. And
which goes back to prove what we were just talking about, that God made everything for us, for the earth, to live on this earth.
Yeah, well, there's another thing here, too, that I can't think of the guy's name, but he's one of the guys who was preaching. and said God created stuff and didn't even know what it was, and then he brought the animals to Adam to let Adam name them, and he uses scripture, and I'm just like, okay, well, back up a chapter there. He actually says the fish, the birds, and the cattle.
Yeah.
Like, no, God knew what he created. God just brought them to Adam so Adam could come up with a name that he would call them by.
Yep.
So if you ever think about it, maybe that's why the duckbill platypus was so weird. It's because God was like, let me see if he can name this one.
Yeah.
But to him, that might be a cat to God. Who knows? God had an idea of what he created, and he was like, okay, well, Adam, you're special. Here, let me bring these things to you so you can name them. So
and maybe he got tired. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you first start out, you're like, hippopotamus.
Yeah. And then you know, cat.
Yeah. Gnat. Fly. Cat. I'm done.
I think, that's one of the things that, I when I read that, like, I'm like, because I used to love that show, by the way, the Ancient Alien thing, because there's some things in there, man, that, like pyramids being built. If anyone knows me, I find it absolutely impossible that we built 8-sided pyramids that look like 4 sides, and the only time they look like 8 sides is at the winter and summer solstice. Explain that to me. I don't get it. And then people tell you they did that with chicken bone. I'm just like, yeah, okay, buddy, go cut me some granite with that chicken bone. Let me know how it works.
Pitch and mortar. Here we go.
Yeah, 2 things have either happened. Either somebody gave them some advice, or we have lost a lot of technology over the years and just don't realize it. But yeah, I used to. So I watched. I think I watched just about every episode of that until it just got like super wonky, and then I was like, okay, dude, I can't do it anymore. And Giglio or Giorgio, he started off with normal hair, and then it just kept morphing, and loved that guy, love him. Anyway, but I think that's something. I mean, so at the very beginning, you have them working, and Dude 6:4, you have Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, and the Lord is one. Matthew 22:37, it says, and he said to him, you shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. That is the greatest and foremost of the commandment. The second, to love thy neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments, the whole law of the prophets. So right there, I mean, Jesus is telling us it's all about relationships.
Right.
If we actually listened to what Christ said and actually tried to live it out sometimes, maybe the world would be a significantly better place.
Oh, goodness, it would, man.
Yeah.
It would. That's what's so weird is in a right relationship with him, you discover that he's given us everything we need to be able to live the life that we were intended to live. We just can't do it without him because we won't listen to him and actually put it into practice.
No, I mean, like me and you've talked before, like when people say, if somebody murdered your child, I'd walk up and forgive them. I'm like, I can't say that.
Yep.
I mean, but I have no idea how I'd react.
In that moment, I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I don't ever have to deal with the moment, but you have no idea what you're going to do. So a lot of times without Christ, I mean, I honestly don't even know how we do a lot of things. I tell people often, and I think they think I'm joking until they get to know me. There's a lot of people in the world, man. The only reason you're still breathing is because of the grace of God. Because I would have strangled the life out of you a long time ago.
Yep.
And I don't, and that I know that because you could like literally like when you're talking to them, you're just like that little angel pops up and is just like, should just put them out of the way.
Right.
And then common sense pops up and goes, you're not going to like prison.
Right.
So I don't know. Like, I really think if people would really treat each other like they treat themselves or like you would treat your parents, and that's even a bad analogy. People treat their parents like garbage these days.
Well, the golden rule.
Yeah.
Matthew 7, if you treat everybody like you want them to treat you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. We've really become really selfish. The more I'm sitting here thinking
about it. But that's
the
whole point, too. Relationships tell us that. If you pay attention, the way we are in relationships and the way other people are with us, it's an indicator of just how selfish we really are.
It really is.
You know
Even
what
if
I'm
you look at if you're a man and you're watching this and you think about your relationship you have with your wife, it's probably significantly more one-sided in your favor than it is the other. And and the problem is half of us will never even take time to like even acknowledge that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
it's like you come to expect it when you shouldn't. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, and expectation will get you in trouble because
Yeah.
if they ever stop doing it, all of a
Yeah.
sudden, man, you're in a whole different mindset.
Yep.
You know. But human love to me, I mean, it's very fickle. Like I always bring that up anyway. You know, human love to me is one of the most fickle things. Like when Jesus came in, you know, the Messiah is here, Messiah is here. The exact same people, crucify, crucify.
Right.
So humans, and I mean, you can look at like what the media does. You know, the media takes stuff today that shouldn't even be a big deal, and next thing you know, we got people wanting to fight over it. And
Yeah.
you're like, if you legitimately took a step back and looked at it and go, I mean, we could work through that. I mean, I'm confused.
Right.
And some of them, man, you're just like, wow. And I think, you know, I don't know. I'm actually I'm scared with the deep fake technology they have now where they can basically take somebody and put your face over them and your voice.
I know, man.
I don't even know if society is intelligent enough anymore to give people the doubt on things anymore. Yeah, I mean, I think, in all honesty, for churches or for the world to move forward, I think we're going to have to get back to a simple, basic thing of, man, relationships actually matter. You kind of
Yep.
need these people.
Yep.
You know, when you start talking about, hey, let's get rid of all police forces, and I'm like, hey, man, have you ever seen some of these war-torn countries? That is what we will look like in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
And it's you. I'm not a big fan. I give Tim, Big Tim used to go to our church. I'm not an overly huge fan of police officers because, in my experience, because normally I'm doing something wrong, and they tell me I can't do it,
Right.
and I'm like, how dare you tell me what I can't do?
Yeah.
But I promise you, if Jason Voorhees is kicking in my front door, I want a Big Tim to come to my house and save me. You know, I mean, I need that person that's going to keep stability in things. Are there bad people in the world? Absolutely, man. It's crazy to think that. What are you going to do if there's none? There's no good people.
Right.
You know, I think that's something that the more I sit down and think about it, the more it like bothers me. Like I was talking to a buddy that I have that's an EMT, and the idea of, there's areas that they prefer to go with police escort. So, well, if all the police quit, these ambulances aren't going to come trialing in there to get you.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? Tell you to come to the end of the road and we'll pick you up there? I mean,
Yep.
there's got to be checks and balances. And I think, I don't know at this point, and just me thinking, I've been thinking about since yesterday, really. I don't know how you mend that fence at this point, man. I think we're really very rapidly approaching a point where there is no return back to any form of what people would have thought was normal.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the COVID thing. I feel like we've been doing this for 6 months now. It's about to be 100 degrees here in the great state of Georgia, and people are still wearing masks outside. So my question is, and it's been to anybody I've talked to that tells us we got to wear a mask, is like, what are you going to do when these people pass out walking?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if people are in stores and they start passing out because it's 85, 90 degrees in the store? But now even the mask, you're seeing a tear in relationships. Like you got the people who are virtue signaling, like they wear the mask, but it's down below their chin.
Yeah.
But they have their mask.
But they have their mask.
And then you have people who truly are worried about their safety. And then you have people that are just like, I'm done wearing this thing.
Right.
You take that, and then you take the injustice of what people, in the police force and things like that go on. Next thing, now you got, it's like it's just compounding at this point.
Yeah.
And the odd thing is, it's the same people on both sides of the argument compounding
Right.
the issue.
Well, and like everybody's wearing masks because of COVID-19, but now you go into the protests and you have guys from different organizations that are not there to protest. They're just there to cause mass chaos and destruction, and they come in wearing masks and hoods and sunglasses, and because it's part of the normal everyday life now, nobody's thinking nothing about it. But you can't identify any of these guys now because they're wearing hoods and glasses and masks, which is, before COVID, if somebody was walking down the street with their hood on and sunglasses and a mask over their face,
Yeah,
you
stood
would be
out.
like, so you'd be very cautious about that person. But now it's like, that's the normal thing now. And these guys know it. So now they know they can go in here and you can turn your camera on and you can catch me on camera because you're not going to be able to identify me.
Well, if you do, they'll just let me right back out.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just making it more and more convoluted which
Well,
is just creates more chaos.
But you know, the question I have, and maybe if somebody's watching this, maybe they can understand better than I do. But I don't know where normal people go in this.
Right.
You know, I think that's the thing. Like, you have all these people that are the far left, and then you have, and for the far left people, I'm just being a guy who's grown up and been around Georgia and a lot of people. I'm not really sure you want the far right activating. I mean, that you start far right, I'm thinking militias, everything else. Okay, so you take your far left, your far right. All right, and then you take the people who are your moderate Democrats, moderate conservative people, right? Well, then you get a whole big chunk of, like, I don't know, 60% of the population. That's like me. We're just kind of in the middle.
Yep.
We're like, hey, man, I do agree you should be able to do just about anything you want to do in your home. I do agree in civil liberties. I do agree that I believe in the Second Amendment, but I don't think you should have a tank. You know, like, I agree with, like, I can agree with people that are on the left. As long as you're normal left, I can agree with you. And I can also agree, but if I'm standing here, I'm much closer to a central Democrat than I am the far right. You know, as a matter of fact, when I did the political thing, you know, I was actually a center-left libertarian, which I would have never guessed that. I probably would have been significantly further center-left or left, but I believe in pro-life, so immediately I think that automatically, like,
Right.
takes you
Push
back to the middle.
down. Yeah.
So I'm okay with you having civil liberties. Like, I'm willing to sit down and talk to you about stuff. I'll listen to you all day about your crazy theories or whatever you want to do. But my question is like, where does the normal people go?
Yeah. I don't know.
Because, I mean, if you go left, so far left, where these people are like, burn it all down and let's start over. Okay, well, what's your plan?
Yep.
Well, I don't have one. Then you go super far right, where they're like, we're not going to change anything, you know? Okay. Well,
But there are some things that need to be changed.
yeah, there's things that have to change. And the problem is the more I talk to people about what's going on and I talk to things, I'm realizing that there's a huge chunk of America that's like me, that's like, what do we do right now?
But doesn't that speak to what I was just talking about, though? Doesn't that speaks to how everything is becoming so convoluted,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that no one knows what's up or down or left or right or good
Yeah.
or bad anymore. You know what I'm saying? And if you do, so many people disagree on it. Who do you go with? You know what I'm saying? Which go from a biblical standpoint, that proves that left to our own devices, we make truth relative.
Oh, man, it's crazy.
Instead of absolute. Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Which is why we so desperately need Jesus Christ more than ever. The more that truth becomes relative in our society, the more we need Jesus, because he is the only one that gives us a measuring stick for what truth is. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
no,
saying?
absolutely. And that's what when the people that I've talked to, the common denominator is I just pray.
Yep.
You know, like, I keep getting that. So you hit this, we're hitting this huge section of where people, but, you know, as I was saying, you know, Sunday is, I really believe we're at a point where the
Yeah, dude.
normal Americans are going to have to be bold and say,
Yeah, we have to
dude,
do
enough
more.
of this.
Yep.
You know, like, no, I don't agree that people should be killed. No, I don't agree with what happened to Mr. Floyd at all.
Right.
Not at all. Anybody who watched that video and you're okay with it,
Then
there's something
you're-
wrong with
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah, there's something wrong.
with
You probably got some real issues.
Right.
But now we're seeing people like in the New Mexico case where the people beat the guy, chased him down the road, beat him some more, tried to stab him. He pulls a gun out, defends himself. Well, they're charging him with murder or, you know, aggravated assault or whatever. I'm like, well, he was clearly defending himself. Like, so what are you supposed to do now? If there's 17 people, are you supposed to stand there and just take the beating or possibly get killed and probably not go home? I mean, so it's getting to where it's almost upside down
Yep.
with what the rule of law. Like, you know, we need clear cut, this is right, this is wrong. And in all honesty, I think that's going to come from that big majority of the middle here standing
Being
up
bold
going,
enough to stand up and
dude,
go,
no,
"All right,
no,
enough's
not
enough."
anymore, dude.
Yep.
I'm done. This is stupid.
We still live in a country where you're innocent until proven
Yeah.
guilty, not guilty until proven
I
innocent.
agree with you. There should probably be some reforms and some retraining, but we cannot not have police officers.
Right.
You know, you can't go in and burn down buildings just because you're upset about it. Like,
Yeah.
guess what? People need jobs.
Yep. Show me an example of anywhere in the world right now where there's no police and everything's just fine and dandy and hunky dory right now.
Well, we ain't even got to go that far. Look in the cities right now where they're not even standing their ground. They're just letting them do what they want to do, or left up to their own devices.
Yeah.
You're already seeing it. So I don't know, man.
Which is all the more reason why we need to talk about this subject, because the one relationship that matters the most is your relationship with Christ. And if that doesn't begin to become more important to you, you know what I'm saying? Then you will get confused on what you believe is right and wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because left to our own devices, we are flawed creatures, and we will have a skewed view or skewed perspective of what truth really is, because truth is relative to you, and it changes when it's relative. It changes with you as you change. When you go through different seasons, when you experience different things, all of a sudden your truth changes all of a sudden,
Yeah, and I mean, this is the next point, but I mean, we still got a lot to cover on the second topic there. But I truly believe your third point, man, your closest relationships should be with Christ followers.
Right.
And I would have argued that a few years back, but now I'm seeing it. Fine example, like you'll hear stories, and I've got the whole thing wrote in there, but you'll hear stuff where, a silverback gorilla takes in an antelope.
Right.
And all of a sudden now the antelope thinks it's a gorilla, right? And you hear that, but so we're really adaptive, but you can have good people who are radicalized through crazy people.
Yep.
And next thing you know, they're just as crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're, in all honesty, if you're a follower of Christ or you're trying to do it, that's the common bond that we have, is Christ. If you have something that people are striving together to be Christian, we're striving together to be Christ-like, those are the people you want to be with. Those
Yeah.
are the people that you need to be shoulder to shoulder with, and saying no.
And
no.
I'm speaking for personal experience, and I'm sure you as well. The people that I have unity with the most, that I get along with the most, that I accomplish more with, that I do life better with, that make me better and I make them better, are all people that are genuinely chasing after growing in their relationship with Christ. They're not just saying they believe in Christ, but their life doesn't show it. You know what I'm saying? As these people grow and as they start to look more like Christ in their life, as they're chasing
Yep.
after Him, that tends to be the way that my relationship with that person goes.
Mm-hmm.
And also on the other hand, if you have a person that I know that claims to be a believer, but from what I see of their life, when it's blatant that they are not chasing after what it looks like to live in the life of a Christian or a disciple, all of a sudden those are the ones that I have disunity with the most and disagreement with the most.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't back each other up, and we're not there for each other. They tend that those relationships tend to drift into becoming acquaintances.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying? And so to me, the proof is in the pudding. You know what I'm saying? That bad company does corrupt good character.
Absolutely. And and that's the thing too. So like, kind of using that, like when people talk about police, and you're like, okay, you got a police officer that did something bad, and then you're like, that's not systemical problems. Like
Yeah.
you have people. Like I'm telling people, man. I mean, like to me, I've had interactions with police officers, dude. I walked away, thought, man, that was a good dude. Absolutely.
Yep.
Like I say, generally, any bad interaction I've ever had with a police officer, guess what? I was doing something incorrect.
Doing something we're supposed to, right?
So, do you get, like, I don't know, man. I don't even get angry with police anymore, because I'm like, well, I mean, clearly I was probably doing something incorrect or something else, but I don't think you can tell the world anymore to take accountability for their own actions.
Right.
So I don't think we can do that. Now, are there circumstances where stuff come up that no matter what you did, it didn't go right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's life, man. That poor gazelle that was getting pulled up in the tree by the leopard probably had done everything right.
Yep.
It's nature.
Well, and I've gotten pulled over by a cop that I had tickets before,
Mm-hmm.
and had every reason. I was speeding and didn't have a good excuse. And they asked me questions. I answered them out of compassion. And I know, because I know that I was in the wrong, out of sheer compassion, they decided to give me a warning
Yep.
and let me go. I've had other cops that have pulled me over for a speeding ticket, and it was because I was doing 45. I was doing 43 and a 40, and they gave me a ticket for doing 3 miles an hour over the speed limit, and gave me 2 other tickets along the way that were bogus. And I knew that cop was doing it to be a jerk because he
Yeah.
didn't like what I said or how I looked. But that's people. People are like that. You're gonna come across good people and bad people in your life. That's not making excuses for anybody, but you can't. Life is too complicated for us to just assume we can just shovel people into categories. You're either, you know what I'm saying, like either everybody's this way or everybody's this way.
No,
That's not
absolutely,
how
man.
life is. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, anybody knows me, man. One of my biggest things that I will tell people, man, if you can't get over a curb that high, like if you're walking and this curb trips you up, and that's being race, gender, profession, whatever, you can't step over that curb. I don't know if I can trust you with anything. I mean, if you can't rationally look at something and go, oh, that's really not a big deal, let me step up over that.
Yep.
And, and I know this trips up Christians because I say it all the time. Dude, I don't care if you're gay. You know what? Because guess what? I'm not judging you.
Yep.
If you choose that that's your thing, well, all I could do is go, hey, man, well, you know what it said over here.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I'm still gonna hang out with you.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna talk to you. And if you want to come over and watch UFC, buddy, I will. You
Yep.
got a spot right there on the couch. I can't just throw somebody out of the thing because there's something about them I disagree.
Right.
All right, man. It's like, yeah, dude, we like the same things. We grew up in the same type environment. We do the same type of work. We both like to work out. We enjoy all this stuff. Oh, you're gay. Oh,
Yeah.
can't hang out with you,
Yeah,
buddy.
can't hang out with you,
Sorry,
sorry.
I can't.
Preponderance, yeah.
I can't. I that's just something for me. I feel the same way if you were, some of the coolest guys I've ever met in my life are black. I'm not gonna just look at them and go, sorry. To me, that mindset just it dumbs me down. Like I don't get it. I
Right.
don't understand it. I never will understand it. Maybe it's because, dude, my dad is about as Native American, Hispanic looking that you could be, depending on, where we're talking. And I went to school, my eyes don't open. People are like, well, you look white, but not really, and my best friend, like, 2 of my best friends, Chris is as white as a human being. Max is, he's Laotian. We always hung out. Like, I think of McDuff and people like that. We hung out with school. I mean, I've never looked at somebody and was just like, I don't like you. I'm sorry.
Right.
I don't. Generally, if I don't like you, it's because you've given me a reason not to like
Right,
you.
right,
It
exactly.
didn't have anything to do with something that, hey, guess what? You have no control over. You have zero control over the fact that you're old.
Yep.
or you like the same sex. And I know, once again, there's going to be people who are going to go, that's not true. I would beg to differ. And I will make this argument all day. I've never woke up in my life and was like, I think I'm going to go kiss Ricky today. It's never happened. And I'm not trying to narrow it down to that, but you can't tell me that you wake up one day and that's what you're into and say that you haven't always been like that. I refuse to accept that argument. And I know people are going to get mad at me and say, well, that means God made somebody flawed. No, it doesn't. Sorry, man. Last time I checked, this is the devil's world.
Right.
The devil could do whatever he chooses to do
Yeah,
here.
he can.
So you're going to tell me he couldn't take you as a perfect person and say, hey, you know what, man? That tight end looks pretty good,
Yeah, let
buddy.
me twist you up. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. Now, am I going to hold that against him? Absolutely not. And like I say, I know people, man, there's people that's a deal breaker. Well, if that's a deal breaker, man, I'm sorry. Our deal's been broken because I'm
Yeah.
never going to understand life the way you see it.
Yeah, but that comes to I think that speaks to your own insecurities too, because if that's a deal breaker for you, then what you're saying is that love is limited.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it's not, and it doesn't mean you accept it. It doesn't mean that you don't disagree with it, but it also means that you realize that before anybody's anything, they're human beings. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? And that's the whole thing. A black person is not a black person. They're a person. They're a human.
Yep.
being. You know, an Asian person is not Asian; they are a human being. Are they a human being of Asian descent or Native American descent?
Yep.
You know, or African American, however they classify it. You know, which I think that's kind of wrong too. But you know,
I think we're the only country that does that.
yeah,
too.
yeah. But the fact of the matter is they are they're people, you know, and that's the thing. If you love God, then you do love people. Do you know what I'm saying? And that doesn't mean that you're a people pleaser. Do you know what I'm saying? That doesn't. But you love them in a way. You love them because you know He does, and
Yep.
you're trying to share the message that He shared with you and that He wants to share with them, and that is that God loves you enough to accept you right where you are, and bring everything you got to the table, and His love for you, not mine, because like you said, there is a human love and then there's a God love, and
Mhm.
those are two totally separate things, you know. But
Yeah,
His
man.
love for you is nothing outweighs it. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing you can do in your life that will ever make Him stop loving you,
Yeah.
because that's what He loved you. That's why He created you. He created you out of His love for you.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I mean that's what I tell you know for me once again I can speak to me because my personal experiences, I genuinely just don't like people. You know,
Right.
like I mean that's just one of the things. Like I really don't like it's something I've grown to. But here's the thing: once I like somebody, it takes a lot for me not to like that
Right,
person
right,
anymore.
exactly.
Once I've accepted the fact, like I'm really like I don't know what the old phrase is, man. Be slow to give your friendship, but when you do, give it all. That's the something that I believe. Like I'm always going to be kind of like little wondering about you when I first meet you. Like I'm gonna be like okay, but once I've like established I like this person,
Right, right, right.
dude, I like you. Now, once I've said before, just because I dislike you or I don't like you at that point, guess what? I'm still going to treat you with respect. Still going to treat you with dignity. Because
Of
guess
course.
what? That's the right thing to do.
Right, right.
Like I think that's the thing. Like when you look at like Jesus, and I always bring this up, Jesus is sitting here, and Judas has already betrayed him, and he washes the man's feet, knowing he betrayed him. Jesus still treated him like he was, gave him respect, gave him dignity all the way through. Even when he walks up to him with the army of men, he still says, "Oh, hey Judas, hey, what's up, man? How you
Yep.
doing?" At no point did he go out and just start land blasting the guy for no reason. So I don't know, man. There's something about that bothers me. That we in society now we've gotten so twisted that if I disagree with you, I hate you.
Right.
And I think that's one of the biggest injustice that we've done in a long time as a people is to say, well, I disagree with you. That means I hate you, or I disagree with your lifestyle, so I despise you. No, I could not agree with your lifestyle and still love you and hang out
Yeah.
with you and
Yeah.
be really cool. And guess what? At the end of the day, I might even make fun of you for a little bit.
But don't you think that speaks to our own pride, though? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, pride is the thing. Like I always say, pride is the man's worst enemy.
Hmm. I think too. When you want a relationship to go the way you want it, I think that speaks to your pride as well. Um, one of the things that a relationship with Christ teaches us is that, you know, you should be. Relationships are about what you can give to it, not what you can get out of it. And the only reason that we learn that is because the more we give into a relationship with Christ, the more we get out of it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't outgive God even in a relationship. And then the same thing tends to happen, in relationships that you have with other people too. When you start looking at relationships with others in the same way that you look at your relationship with Christ, and you start to give more to that relationship than you expect to get out of it, the reverse happens. Instead of you getting given too much, you get out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
It's when it's in relationship with people that have a right living or have right hearts, and that's why that goes back to us doing life together with other believers and other Christians, because someone that does not know Christ, they're not looking to give into a relationship. So when you give into a relationship with someone who's not living for Christ, their natural tendency is going to be to use it up. Let me get out
Mm-hmm.
of you what I can get. And we all know that we have friends like that.
Oh,
Or
there's
relationships
businesses
that
like that, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's entire companies that are like
Right,
that.
right, right.
And you know what? You can't even fault them. All they're caring about is their stockholders. That's the relationship that matters to
Yeah,
them.
yeah, exactly. Because
Or
they're
their
in it for a
investors.
buck.
Yeah. So being in the line of work I'm in, I've gotten kind of used to the idea of that. When it's time for them to let you go, man, there ain't really much you can do. And I mean, your relationship's going to get used up, and people get mad about how companies treat them. But I'm like, buddy, you agreed when you took the job.
Exactly, exactly.
You
And
know.
all of this today just speaks to really how complicated and difficult when you start trying to get in doing the task of trying to figure out relationships and their purpose and their meaning and how to do them right and what are the benefits for them and how they fit into God's kingdom. You realize it really is a vast subject because there is a lot of rabbit trails you can go down. There's a lot of things that you could talk about. So over the next couple of weeks, we're probably going to spend a couple of more weeks on this one than we would some of the other ones, I would think, as well, because this one really is key. Relationship with Jesus and a relationship with others is really what Christ was talking about when he referred to the great commandment. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
absolutely.
the second is likened unto itself. And so it tends to reason that we would need to spend some time into it because there is a lot of aspects to it that we can
Yeah.
discuss and that will help us figure it out.
Exactly. So if you have a good relationship with God, you would honor Him with all your heart, your
Right.
mind, your body, and
Exactly.
soul.
Right.
And then the fact is, if you've established that relationship first, well, then the idea of loving your neighbor with the same way you love yourself, I mean, it makes it significantly easier.
Exactly, exactly. But it also stands to reason that if this is something that he said is really the greatest commandment, is loving God and loving others. Do you know what I'm saying? Which is about relationships. Then we should put a majority of our effort into figuring out, relationships
Yeah,
and what
absolutely.
they mean and why they matter. So, over the next couple of weeks, we hope that you'll join us here on Thursdays at 2 o'clock. It's 3:13 now, and so we're gonna take a pause right here, and we'll pick this conversation back up next week. But we do want to encourage you to join us every Thursday at 2 p.m. right here as we walk through studying the Bible. This Bible study podcast is called Built to Last, and we do believe that we were created to become students of the Word, and that when we learn how to live in right living or right standing with Jesus Christ, as the Word teaches us, that we do become creatures that are meant to last forever in eternity with Jesus Christ. And so that's how we're built up and wired. And so that's the purpose behind this podcast. Jerry and I don't claim to have all the answers or know everything. We don't want you to take our word for it. We want you to become a student of God's word and make sure that you're exploring what we say and what we teach, and see what God says on it and what He commands on it, and what He teaches on it, so that you can know why you believe what you believe. And so we hope that next Thursday that you'll join us for session 2 of Relationships Matter, as we take a look into our core values and why they are so important. And so also want to remind you that this Sunday is going to be Father's Day, and if you don't have anywhere to celebrate it, we would love for you to come and join us at 136 Hood Street, the Hood Street Art Center in McDonough, Georgia, for our Sunday morning 10 a.m. service, as we have a special Father's Day message for our series that we're in right now called The Secret Life. We would love for you to come and join us there, or if you can't be with us in person, you can join us online on Facebook at Facebook at Destination Church Georgia, on our Facebook page. And so please make plans to spend time with your family, especially your fathers, this Sunday. And if you do have a home church, go to your church and celebrate Father's Day with them. But if you don't, we'd love for you to tune in with us. We hope that you guys, as always, have a wonderful week. And if there's anything that we can do to help you, if you have any questions or comments you'd like to make, you can just post on this below, and we will follow back up with you as soon as possible. Jerry, thank you for all the time that you put into preparing for this. And you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday.